Good evening. As you can see, I'm broadcasting tonight from New York. I'll be in America all week. We're going to bring you a lot of big American stories. But for now, we're going to focus on things at home. You see, for over 2 decades, I've made the argument that uncontrolled mass immigration, this is the legal stuff, by the way, that I'm talking about, happening on a scale never seen before in the history of our islands, was putting pressure on housing, on GP appointments, and yes, indeed, on the number of cars on the road. And generally, I was mocked, derided, sometimes abused for daring to say those things. But now, actually, I think there is a sort of common understanding that a 10 million increase in the population since Mr. Blair came to power is putting unacceptable pressures on. But the one thing those who believe in mass migration and those who believe in open borders will always hold to is that it's good for the economy. It's good for GDP. And I can well remember being with Nick Robinson of the BBC about 10 years ago when he said, but Mr. Farage, immigration at these levels is good for GDP, to which I said I couldn't really care less because it's GDP per capita that actually matters. Now, the argument has persisted and held right up until today that it is good for the economy, so you will simply have to put up with it. Well, a report out overnight has maybe blown a hole in that, maybe hold the whole argument below the waterline. You see, the Centre for Migration Control have put out astonishing statistics suggesting that unemployed migrants since 2020 have cost us a staggering sum of money. Well, I'm joined by the research director for the organisation, Rob Bates. Rob, in very, very simple English, please tell me how many people who we define as migrants are not working, and what has it cost us in the last few years?
So, Nigel, last year we actually saw a record in the number of people that are arriving in the UK and then not going on to work. It's actually worse than what you say. It's not unemployment, it's economic inactivity, which means they're not between jobs, they're not waiting to start a new role. They are actually not in a role and they're not seeking a new role. We found through ONS data that there were about 1.13 million people currently economically inactive having arrived here on a visa, whether that be work, dependent or study. We have also found that since 2020, £24 billion has been spent on providing services such as education, police force, transport, and then housing communities on these individuals as well.
24 billion since 2020. It is, an eye-watering sum. I mean, people get very upset at the cost of £8 million a day for hotels for those that come illegally over the channel. Rob Bates, what I want to put to you is this. Why has nobody produced any comparable figures to this before? And also, why is this not now already a major news story? Is it because the media want to turn and face the other way, or is it because people are querying your figures?
Look, Nigel, sadly, unfortunately, there is a consensus that exists in Whitehall, exists in Westminster, and it exists amongst most civil servants that, as you pointed out in your monologue at the beginning, mass migration equals GDP growth. And this is the mindset that has gripped people since the late 1990s. Those of us that try and put forward the case that, there perhaps isn't the economic benefits that are being purported are frequently chastised, and as you say, you've been campaigning on this more than anyone else, but the argument simply finds itself pushed to the side by a vice-like grip. The Quangos, the OBR, the Migration Advisory Committee have this disease at the heart of their policy making that views the increase in the population exponentially as increasing not just GDP, but GDP per capita. And as we are seeing now, and most of us are experiencing, that GDP per capita increase just isn't translating.
No, the arguments are really, really beginning to disappear. But we'll be told, Rob, that the silver lining is that students, foreign students, come to Britain in ever-increasing numbers, and that really is good for our economy. That's what we'll be told.
Oh, absolutely. We'll be told absolutely everything. I mean, another report produced by our centre found that the actual costs versus the benefits that these foreign students do bring is if anything, a net negative. I mean, the general narrative around this is that those that come here to study are paying the tuition fees and then are making economic contributions by buying things and things such as that. But the fact is that we are having to provide services for these people, and the public expenditure has to increase in proportion to the population. This is pretty basic economics, and no one does seem to be gripping it.
No, we don't. Well, Rob, I have to say, well done with these figures. It's fascinating. It could change the whole national debate, and they may be ignoring you now, but unless they can destroy your calculations, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of you over the course of the coming weeks and months. And thank you for joining me this evening.